How's it going, you awesome people? I'm Jake the Ashen Hollow, and this will be my first impressions of Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. I'll be making this video as spoiler-free as possible. I'm not going to get into story details, and I'll only be using cutscenes and footage from the beginning of the game. So if you've started playing it, you'll likely be far past what will be seen, and if you haven't started playing it, nothing shown should be anything too revealing. I also think it's important to note that this is the first impression from the perspective of a massive Dark Souls fan. The game is by Miyazaki and FromSoft, so there is a level of expectation there, and Sekiro, while completely separate from the Souls games, in style was meant to appeal to Souls fans. And please keep in mind these are solely my opinions. Anyway, let's get into it. First, let's talk about the story, which is probably the part I'm most disappointed with. Now don't get me wrong, I thought the story was great, that's not my problem, but it's far more linear than any of the other Soul titles, which leaves a lot less room for speculating upon the lore. It's more this way because the narrative is different. In Dark Souls, the story is mostly told around you, whereas in Sekiro, it is told through you. So naturally, that's going to leave less up for interpretation, and in places where the story becomes ambiguous, it leaves very little to none to follow up on. Now, like I said, this doesn't make the story bad, but it just didn't meet my expectations, which I would put on me and not the game. Then there is an unbalance to the game that makes it more difficult than it should be. Not that the game shouldn't be difficult, but the standard mobs throughout the game are fairly basic and easy to fight. Then when you make it to a boss, they just crank the volume up times 50. The game isn't properly preparing you for the more difficult fights in the game, which makes it feel like you're playing catch-up again every time you get to a new boss. Now this doesn't make the game bad or break it in any way, it just makes it seem unusually unexpected, which in the end is maybe what they intended, but to me it just doesn't quite feel right. Finally, there's the replayability issue, and with this game I don't see much value there. Customization is a bit lacking in Sekiro. Sure, there's a skill tree that mildly mixes up your playstyles with certain prosthetics you can get, but ultimately trying different combinations didn't feel much different to me. It seemed like the playstyles mostly boiled down to sneak or not to sneak. This again just falls back to the expectations I had for the game. After playing Miyazaki's games for the past 7 years, and the customization that came with those games made Sekiro feel flat to me. It felt like there was less incentive to play the game over and over, whereas in Dark Souls I'd play through again just to revisit ambiguous pieces of dialogue, or to try out a varying array of different builds, and don't get me started on how beloved Fashion Souls is in the community. These things just don't really present themselves in Sekiro. I don't know how many times I will play through it, I'm just certain that it won't be anywhere near as many times as I played through any particular Souls title. I'm also not sure how many videos I'll be able to make about Sekiro. I have a few in mind on some of the spots we have to speculate in the game, but beyond that I'm just not sure. And I'll still wait a few more weeks regardless, just to give everyone enough time to play through it and absorb the story themselves, so I don't post too early and worry about spoiling anyone. But I think everyone should give Sekiro a play. It's a great game, especially when it's not compared to Souls, but for me, it's hard to not slightly compare it to Souls, all things considered. Again, this is all just my opinion on the game. I still thoroughly enjoyed Sekiro in its own right, and I don't think FromSoft shouldn't pursue the game style in the future. It just didn't meet my expectations, which boiled down to being my problem for having them in the first place. But what can I say? You can't really control those things. I'd of course love to hear your opinions in the comments. Let's just keep them civilized. Some of you will agree or disagree with me and others, and we all have our opinions, and that is fine. But everyone's opinions are their own, and none are worth more than others, so let's keep the love in the comments. And don't worry, like I said, there are still a small handful of Sekiro videos that I believe I can get good content from, but again, those won't come out for a few more weeks. So if you see varying uploads between now and then, fret not. There's no way I'm forgetting about Sekiro. Thanks a ton for watching. I hope you all have a great day. Peace 'em out!